Hey everyone, Dine Sports. Welcome to a breakdown of UFC 288. Coming this Saturday, May 6th, we have an awesome bantamweight championship fight and full card of live fights from the Prudential Center in Newark, New Jersey. Looking forward to the return of Henry Cejudo as he tries to get the belt back from the current champion, Aljamain Sterling. Nick, how are you feeling going into UFC 288 this Saturday?
Yeah, I'm excited for it, man. Coming off two of probably my worst betting cards in a while, and just really bad cards in terms of name value and just quality of competition. So really looking forward to a card where we know these fighters. We've seen them fight a bunch. There's some really good betting spots, a lot of name value. Obviously, the title fight you mentioned, strong co-main event, and then a lot of big fights as far as like positioning in some of these divisions go. So I'm looking forward to it. Definitely going to be one of the better cards we've had in a few weeks. So very hyped to throw some money down on this one.
Yeah, I really like what we're getting here. A stacked preliminary slate, a great main card. I mean, we'll start with the main card and the main event, the bantamweight title up for grabs here. And what is a near pick'em fight between Aljamain Sterling and Henry Cejudo? Cejudo right now sitting slightly favored, minus 120, most books, moving from a dead heat pick'em to start the week. Cejudo's coming off a 3-year layoff here, so a lot of questions about exactly what we're going to get, but I like what we've been seeing out of him, especially like the behind the scenes content. Not only what he's producing himself, but the actual training camps he's had with world champion fighters. They're at Fight Ready in Arizona, getting in great rounds with champion Zhang Wei Li, John Jones, Yuri Prohaska. Demetrius Johnson fighting this weekend, Devison Figueiredo. He has a lot of guys he's able to get these looks from, and I think well out of competition after his brief retirement stint. He's still been in the gym every day, training after a short layoff that he had taken, getting married, having his first kids. But really, when it comes down to it, Cejudo, one of the best bantamweights we've seen. Just the fight IQ, I think, is going to be a big difference, separating him from, not only Sterling, but a lot of his previous opponents. We see Cejudo go out there and find a way to win, making a lot of the right decisions in his fights. I think he has the striking advantage here against a guy like Aljamain Sterling. While Sterling has, improved on the feet, certainly throwing out better kicks as of late, using his range much better than he has, when he first started this UFC stint. He's just going to have trouble with Cejudo in terms of his speed, in terms of the power behind his punches. I see Cejudo spamming leg kicks a lot in this fight, working on that lead leg of Sterling, trying to take away his ability to, move forward and control where this fight is taking place. And then when it comes to Sterling's best attribute, it is the grappling and the offensive jiu-jitsu that he's utilized to great success, beating TJ Dillashaw, beating Peter Yan. Really been a staple of his game for this entire championship run. And Cejudo has the wrestling, has the counter wrestling to likely keep Sterling away from his back. Sterling's ability to take the back, a huge X factor, something that I've bet him on this championship run, been backing Sterling. I just think against a high caliber wrestler, we aren't going to see the same, sustained success in the area of jiu-jitsu. So my lean for this fight is going to be Henry Cejudo. I think over 5 rounds, we're going to see him put in the better work, put in the more damaging strikes, do the better work on the feet without a doubt, and be able to defend Sterling where he does his best work in those grappling exchanges. So I'm taking Cejudo here in his return to action. Curious to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm leaning to the Cejudo side for sure. I think that when you look at the line, it is a pick 'em, but I think that 3-year layoff is kind of baked in. I think if this was Henry with a couple fights over the past couple years and active, he'd probably be like 150, 170 here. I mean, Sterling's been a good champ. Honestly, he's far exceeded my expectations. I'm a big Peter Yan guy who's obviously been on the downturn lately, but I mean, if you kind of look through this title reign, he beat Peter Yan in that fight with the illegal knee. early, a fight he was clearly losing. Then a very, very close decision, a fight he started to fade late, and then that fight against Dillashaw, where Dillashaw admitted his shoulder was completely wrecked going in. So it's really tough to gauge exactly the level Sterling's at right now. Like, obviously, he's one of the best in the division, but is he one of the best in the division to the point that you can favor him over someone like Henry Cejudo? I don't necessarily think so. We've seen some shots of Cejudo taking his media day pictures and things like that. We're recording this before weigh-ins, but he seems to be in excellent shape. That was a bit of a concern for me coming in, but all things look great as far as I'm concerned to this point. I mean, just to poke a few holes in Cejudo here, I mean, he is a very technical boxer. We hear about boxers oftentimes when they're out for a long time. It takes some time to get the timing down, but like you said, I think he has enough rounds over at Fight Ready, one of the best camps in the game right now. You know how high I am on Eddie Chance and Tino DeFranco. I think they're both going to be in his corner. Just one of the best teams in the game. Very, very cerebral, very heady fighter. Going to have an excellent game plan. Sterling usually comes out aggressive, other than that second Peter Yan fight, where they were both kind of mirroring each other. He ended up winning that round, like outstriking him 6-3 or something stupid like that. I think Cejudo could take the first round here, and I do think he has the better cardio. So it's going to be interesting to see what Sterling's game plan is if he's going to go to the takedowns. Cejudo shows a 93% takedown defense in the UFC. That's actually a 100%. The one takedown that was credited against him was in the first Demetrius Johnson fight, I think in round 3. But if you rewatch the fight, it wasn't a real takedown. He wasn't taken down. It's just a scoring error. So he has 100% takedown defense in the UFC, which is pretty remarkable to me. I don't think Henry's going to shoot for takedowns unless it's at the end of rounds. Like, again, very smart fighter. If it's close in the striking, he'll try to get the takedown in the last minute just to seal off the round, as we've seen judges favoring that a lot recently. But yeah, it's not going to shock me if Sterling can kind of keep him at a distance a little bit. But I do think Henry's shown time and time again that he can close the distance. He is that type of fighter that is able to kind of take range out of the equation. So if you're Sterling, I think the game plan here is to kick and keep distance as much as possible. Maybe go for takedowns against the cage, because even if Henry defends them, maybe you can kind of wrap around his back just having such a long frame. But it seems more likely to me that Henry's going to be the minute winner here. I favor his power on the feet, and we have seen Sterling KO'd before, so it wouldn't shock me to see him finish him late. I don't want to overinvest just because of the long layoff, but at the same time, we saw John Jones in a similar situation recently come in and look amazing. I do kind of think this is a tougher matchup for Cejudo than what Jones was facing with Cyril Gane, at least stylistically. These guys are pretty similar, but at the same time, I mean, he is who he is. I really do like Cejudo here. I do think he gets it done. The age difference is only 3 years. The big difference here we really have to talk about is that height and reach. And I mean, when they faced off today at the what's it called, the press conference, I was a little bit surprised it wasn't as pronounced as I expected. So that makes me even a bit more confident in Cejudo. So I want to see these guys weigh in tomorrow. Both these guys have not had major issues making weight, but they certainly have to struggle to make weight. So I'm going to keep an eye on weigh-ins, but for now I'm definitely on Cejudo. Probably just take him on the money line. I don't know if he could get it done inside the distance, but I do think the cardio holds up, and it wouldn't shock me to see him finish Sterling late here. So should be a great fight either way.
Yeah, I'm very concerned regarding Aljamain's weight cut. I mean, normally he looks sucked out fight week. That's no surprise. It's just it seems even more particularly so this week. We'll see him on the scales, come Friday. Hopefully he makes weight without issue. It's just I am concerned, and certainly wouldn't be looking to bet him at this point of the week until weigh-ins are through. I also just feel for Sterling backers, you may get a better price, whether it be after weigh-ins or just as steam comes in, on this fight late. I already have my action on Henry locked in. But again, close fight, not super confident because Sterling is one of the best in the world. He's the guy with the belt right now. So, can't feel too great, but should be a great fight. And I as well have Cejudo. We'll move on now, taking a look at the co-main event. This is a great fight at welterweight and likely a title eliminator. Dana White has come out and said the winner of this fight will be fighting for the belt next. I'd imagine it could be a short layoff between such, but that wouldn't be an issue, especially for Gilbert Burns, who just fought 5 weeks ago, winning a huge fight against George Masvidal. This being a 5 rounder, I think is going to be a huge factor in deciding the outcome here, and makes me more hesitant to bet Burns than I would be in a 3 round contest. Muhammad's great. He's a fighter I really don't love. I don't think he has, that much talent on the feet. It's just the way he grinds out fights, the way he pressures opponents, the way he finds a way to win. It's cost me some money, and I really don't want to lose on him too much more here. And just the ability to fight consistently over 5 rounds. We've seen it before. And I feel like he would be favored if this fight were to go late. I just feel Muhammad's grappling is going to be nullified by the jiu-jitsu of Gilbert Burns here. And when comparing these two on the feet, Burns is the more aggressive striker, the more effective striker, the one landing the more powerful shots when these two are standing. I'd hope he doesn't take too aggressive an approach here facing Bilal, because I feel like over the course of time, he would prove to be the superior fighter. Just with a title shot on the line, Burns, perhaps being a bit too eager to stand, trade, as he has in some previous fights, that also gives me some pause on backing him here. But I do feel like we are going to see him hurt Bilal on the feet. I really am not expecting the same out of Bilal. We've seen him get to guys like Sean Brady in striking exchanges, but that's sort of a different story, especially seeing the game plan Brady was attempting to execute in that fight against a great wrestler like Bilal. Burns likely won't be shooting. He's had some success using his grappling in fights as of late, but I feel like we will see these two mostly engaging on the feet, which is having me favor Gilbert Burns at this point. But again, I'd feel a lot more confident if this were just 3 rounds, but these guys are getting ready for a championship fight, going the full 5 round distance here, I think. But Burns is going to be the pick for me. I just think he's far better in terms of his skill striking.
Yeah, I'm with you. Leaning Burns right now, but yeah, you bring up a great point. I think the 5 rounds definitely favors Bilal. He's the one who asked for it in negotiating. He initially asked for a catch weight. He wanted to fight at 175. Burns says no. Then Bilal says, okay, fine, but we're doing 5 rounds. And then Burns said, okay, I guess. So it's pretty interesting, and the line is very close here. I do agree with you. I think Burns is the better striker here. But at the same time, I mean, we always underestimate Bilal, and I was very high on him on his rise. But once he started getting to the top, I started fading him against Thompson, against Luque, against Brady, and every single time he proves me wrong. But this situation, I mean, I'm pretty comfortable backing Burns here again, but I mean, it's bordering on insanity the more I fade Bilal, and it's just very difficult to want to really invest on either side here. So I'm with you. I think when you look at the Kamzat Kamaev fight, that's a fight where a lot of people thought Kamaev would go in and wrestle. He tried a little bit, felt the danger of Burns's guard, felt the danger of that jiu-jitsu, and I think we're going to see a similar situation here. Maybe Bilal gets a takedown early, but he's not going to like it once he gets Burns down. And obviously, I don't see either of these guys having much top control. So I agree with you. I think this is a fight that takes place on the feet. Bilal's striking continues to improve, but it is certainly more predictable than what we've seen out of Burns. Both these guys are pretty durable. We've seen them both KO'd on separate occasions. So I don't know. It's really just a tricky fight to call. But a lot of the intangibles, I do favor Burns. He's coming off that fight against Masvidal where he really took no damage. He's still peaking. I mean, he stayed in Florida, went to Orlando with his kids, but other than that, he's been right back into camp. Bilal coming out of Ramadan, obviously he's used to that, but at the same time, I mean, it's tough to go from that to a full training camp unexpectedly. It's more short notice for Bilal. Obviously, it's a short notice fight for both of these guys. But I think Burns is going to be closer to his peak performance than Bilal is here. I don't know that either of these guys are going to be at their best form, honestly. I mean, it's not a full training camp. It is a 5 round fight, so it'll be interesting to see if Burns comes out aggressive. And you brought up a great point. I mean, we look at his fight against Usman. He was doing great early in that fight against Kamaru, and then he got over aggressive, got caught, ended up KO'd. I would hate to see something similar happen here. But yeah, I think the plan, if you're Bilal, kind of grind up against the cage. Maybe don't go for the takedowns, but just really pressure Burns, kind of wear on that gas tank. But Burns' cardio has looked pretty good. He was fading a bit in that Kamaya fight, but at the same time, he did seem to find that second win. I would give the cardio advantage to Bilal here. Grappling kind of nullifies itself. Striking goes to Burns, but I think the difference for me is that we get Burns coming out of a camp with Masvidal where he stayed in shape, and Bilal kind of coming off Ramadan where he was focused on more mental than physical, and I think that's enough for me to back Burns here at a very close line. But again, Bilal's proved us wrong so many times. Am I going to be shocked if he's able to keep this close and then pull away late? No, not at all. We've seen it time and time again. So another really fun fight. I love that it's 5 rounds. Love when we get these 5 round co-main events without the title on the line. I think the UFC should be doing more of these. But I'm going to back Burns here somewhat reluctantly. Probably won't bet heavily on him. But yeah, both these guys are certainly live, and it's good to hear that Dana is going to give one of them a title shot after Colby fights Leon next. I think both these guys have shown that they're willing to do whatever it takes to get in that spot, and it's nice to hear that the UFC is going to guarantee that for them here. So, yeah, great fight. I'm going to go with Burns, but man, Bilal has proved me wrong time and time again.
Oh man, I lose another below, but I can't do it. But yeah, I know. We'll see. Burns, the handle, a lot of the bigger bets, bigger action on below with the line not moving much thus far. But yeah, Burns is the pick for me as well. I think he's able to get the job done. Um, Moving on now, take a look at this women's strawweight bout with Andrade back at 115 pounds, facing Yan Xiaonan. This is an interesting fight. I mean, Andrade's coming off a loss to Aaron Blanchfield 2 months ago, but I'm not going to let that cloud my vision of 3 months ago, the beating she was able to put on Lauren Murphy. Still one of the best, female fighters in the world, Jessica Andrade, in my eyes. Blanchfield just might be that good. And that was a situation where Andrade was, succumbed to the grappling advantage of her opponent. And that certainly won't be the case here. You have Yan Xiaonan largely looking to strike on the outside in this matchup, earn points, throw the higher volume, and try to match a pace set by Andrade that, normally most girls aren't able to keep. I do think Xiaonan is a pretty solid contender. She does well when it comes to the outside striking. It's just the risks she's going to be taking in the pocket with somebody with the power of Andrade is certainly concerning, as well as the fact that Andrade having that, base in jiu-jitsu as well, the ability to, control girls on the mat, out grapple most of her opponents. Also raises a bit of concern for the Xiaonan camp, as we also saw Mackenzie Dern, sort of get the better of Xiaonan in the latter half of that fight, utilizing, the grappling advantage. So Andrade sitting minus 190, favorite in this spot. I think that's about where the line should be. I probably would feel comfortable backing her at that number just based on, the resume she's put together as a whole compared to that of Xiaonan. I think it's a clash stylistically. If Andrade elects to take this fight to the mat, we're going to see a decisive edge to her there. So Andrade is the pick for me in the spot, getting back in the win column.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think I'm taking Andrade here. A little less confident though. I really don't love the price, and after watching her performance against Blanchfield, I know that fight came on short notice. It's just tough to feel super great about her here. I mean, that was just not good. She did not look good on the feet. Obviously, Blanchfield had the grappling advantage in that spot, but her timing was terrible. Striking against a girl whose striking is far worse than Jan's, in my opinion. So I do like Andrade here. I do think she can get it done. I think the path of least resistance would be to mix in the grappling, grind her up against the cage. I'm not necessarily confident in her doing that here. The thing is, Andrade is very, very hittable in exchanges. Zhao Nan Yan is probably a little bit more technical. Obviously, Andrade has a major power advantage, though, and I think that's the reason I'm going to go with Andrade here. But this screams split decision to me, and I do like Andrade, and I do think she gets it done. I do think she's the rightful favorite. But man, if they fight 3 rounds on the feet, the striking numbers are all pretty close. They're both wearing some damage. Like, who knows with the judges lately where it's going to go? Like, I don't think this is a minus 190 spot for Andrade. I think it's more like a minus 140 ish. So I like her here. I'm going to back her to get it done, barring something strange happening at weigh-ins. But we continue to see better versions of Yan Xiaonan, and that fight against Dern was hilarious. Zuckerberg rented out the whole Apex to watch Mackenzie Dern get a win against her, and she shut that down real quick. Looked really good, and I know you talked about her fading late, but this is only a 3 round fight here, so I don't think that's really going to come into play. Really tricky spot, but I do back Andrade. She's saying all the right things this week. This is her proper weight class. That fight with Blanchfield was up at 125, again, on short notice. So I'll take Andrade here, but I don't love the price of 190 at all. I really can't say that I'm too excited to back her there. But at the same time, I do see her as the favorite.
Yep, fair points brought up, and Yeah, I mean, I back her most of the fights she takes. I think Jianan is, good competition for her, but Andrade's aside for me as well. Now breaking down a short notice matchup between Movsar Evloev and Diego Lopez. Originally, we had a great matchup slated for this week with Bryce Mitchell facing Evloev. Two great grapplers going head to head. But now it's the debut of Diego Lopez on short notice, coming in a 5-1 underdog against the -900 Movsar Evloev. He has a decent resume, Lopez. We saw him find success earning a win Dana White's Contender Series, as well as some wins over, some previous UFC fighters. But, I think his style compared to that of Evloev, it's going to be tough for him to get a win, especially on short notice. We see Lopez utilize grappling a bit. His offensive wrestling is good, and he won't find that against, an undefeated Evloev who has such great wrestling, counter wrestling, the sambo mixed in. And then while Lopez is talented on the feet, we have seen a lot of improvement out of Evloev as of late. I really liked his performance last time out. The output he was showing on the feet compared to some of his previous bouts. And I mean, he's a decision merchant, so all these fights are pretty sketchy as they go late. It's always going to be Evloev, not really pursuing a finish, just based on his fighting style, more control over submission when it comes to working on the mat. But certainly, I feel that Lopez's best round is usually his first, and we are going to see in the second, in the third here, Evloev take control of this fight, whether it be with his takedowns, as we've seen him elect to in the past, or even keeping the feet here. I think Lopez is going to have a tough time on such short notice. Coming into the UFC and putting in sustained success striking, especially if he's uber aggressive in the first 5 minutes of this fight. So I think everyone stays undefeated. I mean, -900. That's not a shocking thing to say. But this Lopez kid is good. I could see him, winning some UFC fights down the road.
Yeah, just to correct one thing you said, he actually lost his Contender Series fight to Joe Anderson Brito. He didn't win that, but yeah, I know I agree with you. He has a decent resume for a debutant for sure. He's the type to just kind of spam submissions off his back, and I think Evloev, if he gets the takedowns here, that's the one thing he's gonna have to keep an eye on. Like obviously, he's gotten out of some crazy submissions from guys like Nick Lentz in the past. I don't really think Lopez is going to be able to kind of wrap him up in anything. But I will say that's probably Lopez's one path to victory. If he can get Evloev dry, maybe sub him early. But after that, it's all Evloev. I think the line's pretty much accurate here. I mean, we saw Lopez fall to Brito. I think Evloev would be like -4, -500 against Joe Anderson Brito. And yeah, he was preparing for Bryce Mitchell, a fight I was prepared to heavily back Evloev. I think he's excellent. I think the long layoff, coming off that Ige fight, 10-month layoff, he's only going to look even better. Still undefeated. The UFC is looking to build this guy. There's a reason they went out of their way to pull someone in on short notice and then keep him on the main card. They're building Evloev here as a contender at featherweight. I mean, with Emmett fighting Taporia next, if Emmett loses, I mean, their guys are kind of falling out of that division. I mean, it's not as deep as 135, 155, even 170 now. So I think they really want to build Evloev in this spot. It's tough. I maybe probably take a little poke on him by finish, but like you said, he is a decision merchant for lack of a better word. But with Lopez taking this fight on short notice, I do expect him to come out aggressive, try to chase that submission early, and then when he doesn't get it, he's probably going to gas and get finished somehow. So yeah, it's really tough to want to put money on Evloev by finish. We really haven't seen it much, but this is the type of spot where I think he should be able to get that done. And I will say Lopez, decent jiu-jitsu, probably could win some fights in this division. I agree with you there. But at the same time, on short notice, Movsar Evloev, probably one of the most underrated featherweights in the division. I think he steamrolls him here. I don't think much more needs to be said.
Yeah, if you're taking him to, stuff the shots of Bryce Mitchell win that fight, then this pick should be pretty cut and dry. Yeah. And other featherweights on the main card as well, a little more grappling here, with Kron Gracie making a return to action facing Charles Jourdain. What are your thoughts on this featherweight matchup with Gracie coming back after nearly 4 years out of competition?
Yeah, so I'm not 100% decided on this one. I'm actually siding with Gracie right now as the underdog. I just think there's value on him around plus 150, and then I think he's around plus 200 or so inside the distance. Jourdain, obviously the more active fighter, much better striker in this matchup, but at the same time, only a 48% takedown defense in the UFC. Gracie, just look at the last name. I mean, he is a Gracie. He's going to be going for the jiu-jitsu here. Um, and yeah, I just don't know that Jourdain's going to be able to keep him off him. So it's going to be really interesting. But yeah, the thing about Gracie and backing him is similar to Cejudo. He's been out of competition for 3 years. He is a space cadet. I mean, he was he's been mad. Like anytime media ask him questions this week, he's just been a dick. Like he's always weird, but he's usually not this much of a dick. Like he's like, yeah, I just been shooting in my backyard, and like he's trying to like sell this brand of himself. So like I don't know how engaged he is. Like he kind of has that Diaz thing about him. I know they're boys. He's boys with the Diazes, and like I don't know. It's just I don't give a fuck. But like, do you believe him? Like, if it's true and he really doesn't care, then maybe this is a bad spot to back him. But at the same time, I think stylistically, as good as Jourdain has been, we've seen him on the ground against far inferior grapplers. I mean, guys like a Rosa, or not a Rosa. Um, I don't know. Wood was taking him down at ease. I mean, we've seen him on his back constantly. And again, 48% takedown defense against a guy who should be pursuing many takedowns here. It's just a very dangerous spot to lay a big number on Jourdain. The other thing about Gracie, he's extremely durable. He's going to lose striking exchanges, but he is a chin. Very tough and gritty guy, going to keep moving forward. The one fear is if he kind of emulates that Cub Swanson fight where he's not going for the takedowns even as he's getting pieced up, like he wants to make some point that he can strike, then he's going to get killed here. But at the same time, as long as he kind of leans on that grappling, I think the opportunities are going to be there for him. He doesn't have the best entries for takedowns. He's not a great wrestler by any stretch, but he's excellent in like creating scrambles, finding awkward angles in exchanges, and just kind of wrapping up body locks and things like that. So I like Gracie, but I'm going to do more research. I want to listen to more interviews. I mean, we've gotten nothing out of this guy, but when there's a 3 year layoff, like we've had tons of info on Henry, so we're comfortable backing him. But he's really an enigma right now, as many of the Gracies are. So I don't know. I think Jourdain is the much better striker here. Much quicker, more athletic. But Gracie is a Gracie, and he's always going to be live for a submission. So if we're going to get value on that number, I'm certainly going to consider it. So definitely check out the article on Saturday to see where I land. But right now, I'm going to side with Crone. Not a ton of confidence, but I think stylistically, against the guy who's been known to give up his back, he's certainly live for the submission here.
Yeah, and I'm not 100% decided on this pick either. But my lean at the current time is Jourdain. I've been a fan of his. I think he does a lot of good work in the cage and the activity recently. Compared to that of Gracie, I think could be a large factor in deciding this fight. Certainly the better striker on the feet, as you said, but the 48% takedown defense is obviously very concerning. Yeah, Gracie shots are super unorthodox. It's not going to be your traditional single leg, double leg you see when he's trying to engage guys on the mat. But Jourdain's style of fighting, getting in the pocket, switching stances a lot, high volume of strikes. It's going to be, present opportunities for Gracie to engage in those moments, very early on in the fight at least, and get a couple looks for engaging with Jourdain on the mat. So I think he's live at that number. You'd probably just prefer to bet him, as you said, inside, or even just taking the submission prop. But yeah, Jourdain's my lean right now. I think he's going to be able to keep distance. This should be 30-foot cage here in Newark, and I think Jourdain should be able to keep him at range early, and then as Gracie, shots get worse and worse late, pull away as this fight goes. So again, not entirely decided. Gracie's somebody, volatile, tough to, back off a layoff like this. But Jourdain is the lean for me here early in the week. We'll move on now to the preliminary portion of the card. The featured prelim is going to be an awesome fight. This lightweight matchup between Drew Dober and Matt Frevola, two guys that bring it. Frevola coming off 2 back-to-back knockout wins, throwing the hands a bit recklessly, honestly, just going in there, relying on, his striking ability. he's got good wrestling, and he may want to elect to use that in a fight against Drew Dober, just due to the style of these two on the feet. Dober, obviously the more durable. We've seen the chin on Drew Dober. His ability to eat shots time and time again is a huge factor in deciding his fights. It was a huge for him in his matchup against Terrence McKinney, eating big shots, sustaining the early storm, and then coming back to finish McKinney there. Yeah, a bit of MMA math, McKinney quickly finishing Favola, and I could see a power puncher like Dober doing the same, depending on the style of fight we see here. Favola fighting in his backyard, training there at Cerro Longo on Long Island. I could see him trying to put on another, performance for the fans as his last 2 times out. But really, his clearest path to victory would be through wrestling, and that's why I find him rightfully lined the underdog. I'm not convinced he's going to shoot. I'm convinced that Dober is going to win most of the exchanges on the feet. And when it comes to eating clean shots, I trust Drew Dober to take a few more than Favola is able. Dober's a bit of a quick starter as well. I could see Favola pulling away in the latter half of this fight if it were to get that go that deep. But the pick for me is Dober. I find him winning by knockout here. In what's going to be one of those fight of the night style fights, as is usually the case with Matt Favola and especially Drew Dober. So this one's going to be fun, but I got Dober.
Yeah, I'm with you. I got Zober. You obviously, if Favola chooses to mix in the wrestling, I think this could be a much closer fight than the line suggests. It's just he hasn't really been doing that lately, and in front of his home crowd, screaming crowd, with a guy who likes to stand and bang. I think he's going to engage in that brawl. And it's probably going to be his downfall. I mean, 2 of Favola's 3 professional losses have come via KO. You mentioned the McKinney fight, but also that Bobby Green win. I mean, Green was piecing him up bad. Dober, that is. Just one of the best chins we've seen in the division, maybe ever. And you look at the guy's face; it's a massive chin. It's like a snowplow hanging from his face. So I really like Dober here. I think he's the more technical striker. Favola certainly underrated, and I do like that he's getting this matchup here. That McKinney fight, he just got kind of bum rushed. I don't want to put too much into that. I don't think that's going to be Dober's style here at all, but I do see Dober as the better striker, the better counter striker. And even if Favola chooses to engage in the grappling a little bit early, we've seen Dober improve his wrestling. I mean, he had a camp for Islam Makhachev. He's continued to show improvement in that part of his game. And yeah, I just don't think you can rely on Favola to mix in the wrestling here. So fight of the night potential, sure. Certainly could see this one getting into the second or third round, but I agree with you. I think Dober knocks Favola out before this one is said and done.
Yeah, strong read there. Sounds like for the 2 of us. Very excited for that bout. Looking next at light heavyweights, Devin Clark facing Kennedy Nzechukwu here in this matchup. And Nzechukwu, on a bit of a streak right now, looking very good. His last matchup against Kudalaba, sort of a second round rally as we're accustomed to seeing. As Nzechukwu is usually content to work on his back foot in the first round, take what the opponent's giving him, look to defend shots, has a pretty good shell on the feet. But in that fight, I mean, Kudalaba 2 for 6 on first round takedown attempts, and then 0 for 2 in the second round. Nzechukwu able to use his size to defend a lot of shots, even against superior wrestlers. And I find that being likely the case in this matchup against Devin Clark, who, while Clark has power on the feet, he probably doesn't want to exchange much with, a talented southpaw with range like this, with, very precise and accurate striking. And Nzechukwu, landing at a higher clip more and more as these fights have gone on, and throwing more as well, especially the later each bout goes. I see Clark likely electing to utilize his wrestling and take Nzechukwu down in the spot. The leg kicks as well, I could see, especially against a taller opponent, a longer opponent, being a factor for Clark getting this victory. But as the line indicates, he isn't the underdog here, and I'm not super interested in taking a shot on the underdog, but paying minus 190 for Nzechukwu isn't really where my head's at either. Minus 200 on some books. I think it's a volatile matchup between talented 205ers, and even with these recent wins for Kennedy, It's not necessarily coming against the best guys in the division. Not that Clark is that, but I see him fighting a similar style fight to the Kudalaba bout and able to pull away. But curious your thoughts. You've had a better read on Devin Clark than I have.
Yeah, I'm like 4-1 on picking Devin Clark his last 5 fights. I do back him as an underdog a lot, and this is another fight I'm not 100% decided on. The thing about this one is these are two guys who are very volatile. Like we've seen different versions of Kennedy. His fight against Jung, he just kind of stood there, looked terrible. And then early in his career, he'd be a guy who wouldn't put out much volume at all. He seems to be correcting that part of his game. And then Devin Clark, another guy. Sometimes he looks amazing, like his last fight against Da Jung. And I think the move to elevations really helped his cardio in a big way. Earlier in his career, he'd kind of fall flat in later rounds. So I don't know. We've just seen so many versions of both of these guys. It's really tough to be confident either way in any of them. I think if this is a striking matchup at range, obviously Kennedy does have the advantage. I think he's the more powerful, more durable fighter, certainly going to put out more volume, I think. But there's been so many times where Kennedy's just kind of froze there. And it's like, what are you doing, dude? And yeah, the thing about Clark is he's willing to shoot for takedowns. And even if he doesn't get them, he's going to go for them again and again. And we kind of saw that in the Jung fight. If he could keep Kennedy up against the cage, I think he's pretty live for an upset here, just kind of winning minutes, grinding him, kind of working on that gas tank, and maybe hoping Kennedy quits in the later rounds. But at the same time, it's not going to shock me at all if Kennedy can kind of catch Clark closing distance and knock him out or something like that. So I think the value, just looking at the line, certainly on Clark here, once again, as it often is, a guy that books really don't love all that much. Trying to see. It is closing a bit, though. It does seem that there is some money coming in on Clark. I'm going to do a little bit more digging on this. As things stand right now, I like the value on Clark, but I can't say I'm confident in him winning here. I mean, the thing about Kennedy, his takedown defense has been improving. I think he's up to 80% now in the UFC, which is certainly a solid number. But yeah, Clark willing to shoot and shoot and shoot again. His cardio has been holding up. And the fights he's losing, Smith, Kudalaba, Mirzakhanov, all guys who do mix in the grappling fairly well. And I don't know that he's going to see that here against Kennedy. Nachukwu did do that against Roberson, but Roberson gets out grappled by everyone. So stylistically, I don't hate this spot for Clark. Currently, he's probably my pick, but at the same time, it's not a confident one. Probably one I need to spend a little bit more time researching in. Just want to see if I can get a better read on that Kennedy takedown defense. But yeah, for now, I do think Clark's the value side, and I'm not surprised that this line continues to close.
Yeah, I mean, really interesting. I could certainly be swayed into a Clark pick here. It's really not been, yeah, like the past couple matchups for both these guys, I have not felt confident going in. Yeah, like you said, you never really know what you're going to get. But yeah, Loon for me at the current time, at least, is going to be in Zetchku. Using that range and being the superior striker on the feet here in this spot. We'll move on now to a welterweight matchup. Chaos Williams facing Rolando Bedoya. Bedoya coming in here training at Shootbox with Charles Oliveira. Upon digging into his resume, the wins really aren't that great, but this is a talented kid who I think can certainly bring a exciting fight here up against Chaos Williams. Very aggressive on the feet. I like his striking. I think he's an effective striker. It's just when it comes to the striking defense, there's certainly holes that I feel like a more seasoned UFC fighter like Chaos Williams should be able to expose. Williams is a pretty steady fighter. You sort of know what to expect in terms of the version you're going to see on fight night. He has pretty solid defense. Sometimes there are going to be, periods of inactivity when he's standing facing off with an opponent on the feet, but he's got some insane power. He's got a couple stellar knockouts on his resume, and I think against a guy like Bedoya, who we've seen get hit quite a few times, in previous fights, he's certainly going to have the opportunity to put hands on him and put him out in this spot. Bedoya's had a good chin. Like we've seen him eat these shots and take them and fight through it. But again, given the level of competition he's been facing, compared to a matchup with Chaos Williams here, I understand why he's the sizable underdog. He's got a little grappling as well, but I really don't see that being a factor in this fight. I think Williams, his ability to keep the feet, it seems to be consistent. And here in this matchup, these two should be content to strike. We'll see if Bedoya takes a super aggressive approach early, but I do feel like at some point he's going to get caught if he's, playing that striking game with Chaos Williams here. Just the tighter boxing from Williams, and I think the heavier hitter as well. So he's the pick for me. Not too surprising at -300. I'm not sure if I'll be betting him at -300, but I do think he's going to get the win, likely by finish.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm not going to spend much more time on this one. I think you covered it for the most part. I do think Bedoya comes out aggressive here. His one window to maybe pull off the upset is going to be kind of a quick bum rush KO. That's his style. He comes out shot out of a cannon. But we've never seen Williams KO'd before. He is the much more technical boxer. There's a reason this line's so wide, and I think after the long layoff, they saw Williams as someone pretty marketable. He fought to that split decision with Randy Brown, a really tough fight. I think they want to get him back on track here, and I think that's what this is. Bedoya is going to bring the fight to him. I see Williams probably countering him, probably putting him down in the first round. We haven't seen Bedoya finish before, but again, level of competition, major factor here. I do expect him to come out super aggressive, and he'll be dangerous for a minute or so. But after that, I think Williams picks him apart. Going to mix in some heavy kicks and probably finish him likely in the first round. I'll probably bet him just to win inside the distance, though. I don't imagine the inside the distance and KO lines are going to be far off one another. So yeah, Williams inside the distance. Bedoya, he's going to have a little bit of a window early, but I don't think it's enough to really pull off the upset.
And I would say an under 2.5 is definitely a
Yeah,
good look
it looks.
here.
I guess they're
It's
probably juiced
probably,
up.
yeah, I was just going to say crazy number, probably the same as taking Williams straight. So just something to consider. Moving on now, women's strawweight. This matchup, I would say, between grappler and striker, with Marina Rodriguez taking on Verna Jandiroba. Rodriguez at -165, now closing to a -130 or so, most spots. What are your thoughts on this matchup? Which way are you leaning?
Yeah, this is tricky. I'm leaning Rodriguez, but it's not a confident play. I do think if Jandiroba can get her grappling going, she's going to look like the favorite here. But at the same time, I mean, we've seen Rodriguez hold off Mackenzie Dern in the past. Amanda Ribas never had a chance to get her grappling going against her. And I do see Rodriguez as the much better striker on the feet, like considerably. But yeah, all it takes is Jandiroba getting on top for a little bit to win a round. I mean, we saw that against Angie Hill. So yeah, I'm with Rodriguez here. This is another one I probably need to spend a little bit more time on. But it's very clear, just sprawl and brawl. She's going to be the better striker here. Jandiroba throws half as many strikes per minute. Marina's takedown defense sitting around 65%. Again, she's faced grapplers like Mackenzie Dern. I will say Jandiroba probably has better wrestling than Dern. Not quite as dangerous with the jiu-jitsu, but certainly very dangerous. But yeah, I can't imagine Jandiroba takes 2 rounds from her here. So I'm leaning Rodriguez, but at the same time, definitely a volatile matchup. And if she can find an opportune position on the mat, she's going to be live for that submission upset. So I like Rodriguez to get it done, but this is not one of my more confident plays by any stretch.
Yeah, and I would recommend checking out our write-up come Saturday for a pick on this fight. Right now, it's tough to say. I was thinking the value was Jandiroba here as the sizable underdog,
Yeah.
but as the line is closed, I am a bit more tempted to go to Rodriguez's side. What's giving me pause is Jandiroba is obviously the superior grappler. The loss to Ribas was a close decision. She had a lot of great moments in that fight, had submission attempts there. And then that win over Angela Hill, just, a long striker, somebody who uses, distance striking quite a bit. Similar to a Marina Rodriguez, she was able to secure 3 takedowns, 7 minutes of control time, and, it was a convincing win for her. So I feel like as these odds close, it's becoming, even tougher for me to, land on a side here. I just do feel the difference in the grappling for Jandiroba is a bit wider than what we have in the striking here. Obviously, Jandiroba is not a huge threat on the feet, but I do see her having a bit of an edge, overall. And surprisingly, the younger fighter too. 2 years the senior of her is Marina Rodriguez. So a bit more digging to be done there, but I think that's going to be a great fight. And Jandiroba is the early pick for me, but we could see if things change. Moving on, the early prelims, starting 6 p.m. on Saturday. If you're trying to catch all these fights, the last of the early prelims will come at heavyweight with the debut of Braxton Smith in the UFC against the man Parker Porter. We'll see right away if Smith is legit or not. The wins for Parker Porter coming against pretty mediocre names: Alan Badeau, Chase Sherman, Josh Parisian. The losses to, upper level light heavyweights, Dawkins, Gelton Almeida, Justin Taffa. He's a pretty consistent fighter. He's going to throw out more volume than a majority of heavyweights, able to grind on you, able to, clinch up against the cage, mix in the occasional takedown, really work over the course of 15 minutes better than a majority of those in this weight class. Well, Smith is quite the opposite. He's been smoking cans, if we're being honest. These 5 wins coming in are against very low level competition, but he is a big heavyweight that throws huge shots. It's going to be probably KO or bust for Smith in this spot. But if he could land, if you haven't seen this guy fight, it's worth tuning in. He's somebody who could put anyone out, and I think that includes Parker Porter. It's just tough for me to back him here as the underdog with the expectation that Parker Porter, if able to make this ugly, if able to eat those shots in the first round, is going to look far superior over the course of 15 minutes, scoring his takedowns, landing more strikes, swaying the judges. And certainly the fighter I would favor if this were to go a full 15. So I'm not certain on this one yet. Parker we haven't seen finished. Smith could certainly knock him out in the spot, but I think Parker's going to be the pick for me here, just grinding it out. But this guy's scary. What are your thoughts on Braxton Smith?
I don't think this guy's scary. He's going to be dangerous. He's going to come out throwing hooks, and if Porter just gets stuck like a deer in headlights, he could get KO'd here. But other than that, I really don't see it. Smith, he has power, but these guys he's knocking out are just no names on the regional scene. None of these guys have gone on to do anything. I think the one time he fought anyone notable, I'm pulling up his record right now, was Sherman, and Sherman beat his ass. And
but 10 years ago, so that was weird situation there.
Yeah, that was his debut. But I don't know, man. There's just nothing about him. And how often do you see Parker Porter with the reach advantage? He's going to be the longer heavyweight for maybe the first time in his entire career. Porter coming off that ugly KO against Taffa, but that was a beautiful counter left. Braxton's going to be dangerous early, but I think if Porter gets caught, he probably clinches him up. He's going to have a huge grappling advantage here, should have a huge cardio advantage here. We've really never seen Smith extended. I think there's value on Porter at 190, and it sounds about entirely insane to say, but I just don't think this Braxton Smith guy's UFC level. It is low level heavyweights. Anything can happen. He could catch him early, but outside of that early little rush, I think this is Porter's fight to win. So I like Porter. It's a New Jersey fight. He's a tri-state guy from Connecticut, so kind of a home crowd fight for Porter. But yeah, I think he gets it done here. Smith, just really nothing all that impressive about him. He's just going to spam those hooks. But yeah, pretty telegraphed, pretty predictable. As long as Porter's on his game, I think he wins this one fairly easily.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking as well. Just the more experience, the more, technically sound should come to fruition, should cash here with Parker Porter. Moving on, next we have a matchup at middleweight with Phil Hawes returning to face Ikram Alaskarov, making his debut in the UFC. This is a guy with excellent sambo, multiple-time sambo champion, good takedowns, very good grappling. Facing a guy in Phil Hawes who has some excellent takedown defense. A really tough base, somebody who's proven capable to defend shots in the past, and some solid UFC wins as well. Phil Hawes is a bit volatile, yet you don't really know what you're going to get out of him on fight night. He is a local guy fighting out of Little Ferry, New Jersey, here on this card. But he's going to need to box to win this fight. He's going to need to keep things standing. He's going to need to put his hands on Alaskarov. He's never that great late in fights, which makes me concerning if this is going to be one where, he can defend those shots early. What is a third round going to look like? But essentially Alaskarov is going to be looking for, takedowns, control here. And if successful getting them, should find a finish on Phil Hawes. We've seen Hawes finish quite bad his past couple appearances. And I think Alaskarov is certainly a guy who could take advantage of him on the mat. It is just the takedown defense of Hawes that's giving me some pause to back him as a minus 200 favorite stepping in here. So I'm a bit torn. Hawes is a tempting underdog, but I think Alaskarov does have a very good skill set. I think he is going to win some UFC fights. I'm just not entirely sure if I'm taking him here yet in his debut against a guy with proven takedown defense. But Hawes is not somebody I like to back, so I probably won't get to the window with him as an underdog, regardless of who I settle on for this matchup. But curious your thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, this is tricky. I thought I'd be more impressed by Ikram here than I am. I mean, when you watch some of his fights on film, when he fights other guys that are competent grapplers, I mean, he doesn't look all that dominant. I mean, the claim to fame is that his only loss is to Kamaev. That's what everyone wants to talk about. Obviously, he has some decent wins over guys like Tululin. But yeah, I mean, if he can't get Haas down, it's going to get a little bit dicey. I do think he has enough power to put Haas out. Haas has been pretty chinny. But yeah, at the price, I mean, there's just a lot of hype on this guy. I think there's a lot of casual money coming in on him because that only loss is to Kamaev. So for me, I mean, I'm leaning Ikram right now, but this is another one I want to spend more time on. Hawes is another one of these fighters like Devin Clark, like Kennedy Njoku, who you really don't know what you're going to get night to night. I mean, he looked amazing against Duran Win, looked terrible a lot of other times. I mean, it's just really tough to get a read on this guy. Obviously, he's going to have an athleticism advantage here, definitely very fast, pretty strong wrestler, but the jiu-jitsu of Ikram is certainly going to be dangerous. So I'm going to spend a little bit more time digging in. I don't know that I can feel confident on this fight either way. But as things stand right now, give me Ikram, but I would not be laying the minus 200.
Yeah, yeah, exactly where I'm at in this spot. And again, maybe I get to the window with Hawes. We'll see where this line settles. But yeah, certainly a close one. Certainly tough to back him at that number in his UFC debut. Um, Flyweight matchup to break down next. Rafael Estevam taking on Zalgis Zumagulov. This is an interesting fight. I mean, Zumagulov 1-5 right now in the UFC, but a lot of close fights. He just has this forward pressure style, this style where he's throwing a lot of strikes but not doing all that much. He's not winning by pressing the pace, moving forward, exchanging with these guys. And I think that could be to a detriment here as well against Estevam. I mean, he should likely test the takedown defense of Zumagulov, somebody who has defended 66% of shots since joining the UFC. But Estevam, BJJ black belt, somebody who has a lot of submissions in the past, and somebody who at flyweight has some of the better grappling we often see just compared to most of these 125ers in terms of pure jiu-jitsu. But Zumagulov, a stronger base, somebody who may be able to defend those shots. And when it comes to the striking game, somebody who likely has the edge, just the more experienced kickboxer. That's Devon sitting as the favorite in this spot. He trains out of a great camp in Novo now, and I think that he likely is ready for a matchup like this. Zalgis is not the toughest test debuting in the UFC. But it's tough for me to get to the window on this fight as well, just because I question if he's going to be able to find a finish on a guy like Zumagulov, who has been going to these close split decisions against, equal competition or someone considered higher competition than this. So a bit torn here as well. What are you thinking for this matchup?
Yeah, I'm leading with Estevam right now. You pretty much nailed this August description. I mean, every single fight of his is close, so you don't really want to lay a big minus number on him or against him. Estevam, he has been pretty impressive, pretty well rounded, really good striking, looks good on the mat as well. I think he's going to be quick and have an athleticism advantage here. But again, it is a debutant against a guy with pretty good experience, so it's tough to get too excited about backing him. I do think he's the side. I do want to mention Zalgis's hilarious Paddy Pimblett haircut after he keeps getting robbed in these decisions. He came in with truly ridiculous bowl cut into this camp. So definitely, if you're watching the fights, tune in early to catch a glimpse of that. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. Estevam going to be more aggressive, going to be shooting takedowns, probably going to be getting them. Zalga's going to be working back to his feet. I certainly see Estevam as the more potent finisher. But yeah, at the same time, it's tough to lay big money on anyone against August or on August, just because every fight he has is close. So I'm signing with Estevam. I think he gets it done. August already talking about retirement too. Whenever you get a fighter talking about retirement, that's usually a major red flag. But yeah, tough to lay big juice fading him right now, just knowing how close his fights tend to be.
Yeah, I mean, facing a guy 8 years younger, one would figure Estevam to have the edge. For those of you looking to back Zalgas, I would suggest taking a look at an over, maybe an over 2.5, or fight goes the distance. You'll be laying like a minus 200 or something of the sort. But I do see Zalgas winning, it being by decision, and very likely this being a fight that goes to a close decision one way or the other, unless Esteban's able to really work that jiu-jitsu on the mat and find a submission win. So close fight, tough one to pick. I'd side with the favorite for now, but again, may do a bit more digging here. See if I could get convinced into backing Zalgas. It's just tough given the 1-5 stint thus far in the UFC. A lot of close fights, and yeah, just coming up short.
Yep.
And last fight to break down, cruising through this great card again, starting the night here, 6 p.m. on Saturday. Claudio Ribeiro taking on Joseph Holmes. What are your thoughts on this middleweight matchup?
Yeah, this is a bad fight. I mean, this is low-level middleweights. I'm not impressed at all by either of these guys. Ribeiro, he has power. That's it. Definitely telegraphs his strike. Definitely doesn't have much cardio. Definitely doesn't have much defense. He showed that in the Abdul Razak fight his last time out. Really a weird corner too. I mean, this guy comes out. It's like a cult that surrounds him. Like certainly around a lot of yes men. I think his own mother's in his corner. Just strange everything about this guy. I will say he has crazy power, and I think that's why he's the big favorite here. But at the same time, I mean, Holmes, if he can get his grappling going, he's going to be very live for the upset. It's just Holmes is pretty low fight IQ. Definitely doesn't like to be hit. So it's like, what happens first? Does Ribeiro catch him, or does Holmes get him to the ground? And it's like, I really can't be confident on either side. This is another one I'll spend more time on, and reluctantly because it's a low level matchup. But yeah, I mean, I could see Holmes maybe scoring the submission. I'll side with him just because he's the big plus number right now. I don't think Ribeiro should really be minus 200 against anyone on the roster. But yeah, he's very live for a KO in that first round. And if he gets it, he's going to look better than minus 200. So you're kind of damned if you do, damned if you don't here. I think the under's the move, inside the distance. Those are the plays to make. It's really tough to feel good about either of these guys, though. These are probably two of the lesser middleweights on the roster. Yeah, I'm just not impressed at all by either of them.
Yeah, I mean, I do think Abdul Razak Al Hassan is a pretty tough test. I think Ribeiro is going to be the pick for me in this matchup. Holmes is going to be looking to grapple, I would say, and just Ribeiro being thicker, having the stronger base. I think he will defend those shots early. And while the cardio isn't always going to be great out of Ribeiro, he normally can keep a steady pace into the second, through the second round. And especially if the takedowns are not coming easy for Joseph Holmes, I see those shots getting stuffed. I see Ribeiro able to put his hands on him and looking the superior of the two on the feet. But as you said, this is not the highest level matchup. I'm not really expecting too much out of either side here. Ribeiro is going to be the pick for me, but not a very confident one. Expecting him to stuff those shots from Holmes and keep this fight standing. Awesome card this weekend. UFC 288, Sterling versus Cejudo. Again, we appreciate everyone tuning in here and watching our breakdown for Dine Sports of the full card. And come Saturday morning, you can check out a write-up with our official pick and prediction for each of these fights. Really looking forward to Saturday watching these fights. And going to be a great weekend of combat sports. Nick, as always, appreciate you breaking these down with me.
Yeah, likewise, man. Gonna be a great card. Good luck, everyone. Let's make some money this weekend.